Hello everyone. We're live again. Live from New York City. Not really, I'm in Tulum still. Welcome as you join. I'm just gonna carry on with this message that the Great Holy Spirit has put this message on my heart, and I'm just gonna spit it. So following on from, if you've been seeing some of my previous videos, I was doing a lot of discourse around abundance, right? Because since I've come to the West, I've seen this thing of charging a lot of money for spiritual work. And while I think it's okay to charge money, I think it should be at a level that most people can afford, or for nothing. And that's just because I received that privilege in India, and I got to sit at the feet of beautiful masters for hardly anything. I just had to pay my room and board in an ashram, and it was like literally hardly anything. Beautiful accommodation, beautiful food. And for example, this is Bodhi Zendo I'm talking about. I got to sit for some months and receive the transmission of Father Amy Sami, a Zazen master. And I just want to talk a bit more about reclaiming. Waves to everyone. Oh, my Gibbons on here. He's my homeboy back from Durban. Hey, everyone. So ultimately today, what I want to talk about is reclaiming the Father aspect of God, which is right thinking and awareness. So a lot of us, like myself, I grew up in fundamental Christianity, right? So if you grew up in an Abrahamic religion, as we all know, the mother principle has been demonized. So we only have a father, and he's gone into major distortion and control and shaming, right? Which is why those religions produce what we call religious trauma, which is something that I had to work through for many years, right? Because it creates a fracture in the psyche when you have such a controlling, overwhelming concept of a Father God, right? So when I came back into my spirituality, it was because I met the power of the Mother, the Holy Spirit Mother. She wrapped her arms around me, and it was because of her that I could come back into wholeness in myself, and come back into a sense of safety and well-being in a spiritual life. And it's only because of her. And I had to process a lot of anger at how much Abrahamic religions had demonized her, because when I met her, she was so pure, so beautiful. I was like, how could they have called you a devil? How could they have pushed you? The whole problem with my life, every torment I've been through, is because I had a misconception of you, and you're wonderful. And because I got to meet her, she in time was able to turn my face back to the Father, right? And the Father had really hurt me in Abrahamic religion. But with the Mother, I now could gain a right understanding of the Father. And I could come back into relationship with my Father. I love my Father. And I know a lot on here I talk about the mother principle, because she's been so relegated to the corners, and we have such a problem with connecting into the mother, the matter of our bodies, our deep subterranean language, the wildness, the Lilith, the desires, the passions, and how that is God as well, right? And that reclamation is very important for our journeys. But now I feel like I've come to the time, I've spoken a lot about her and the Kundalini and the mother. We must take back the mother. We must take back the mother principle. But now what I'm seeing is in culture is that perhaps because people have been so hurt by a patriarchal religious father, they have forgotten how to balance the mother with the father principle. Waves to everyone who's waving. Thank you for being here. I'm going to keep riffing. So I'm seeing this in the abundance discussion I've been having. And what I'm receiving is lots of people support this kind of concept of charging a minimal amount that most people can afford, or nothing. Because and what I'm seeing a lot of in Western culture is the association of Tantra and money, right? So I just want to make it clear, like, just in case anybody thinks that I don't have money, I don't pay for highly priced spiritual events and spiritual offerings, not because I can't afford it, but because of the principle. You've already shown me just up front on the price of your flyer that you don't get it. So why would I? It's not that I can't afford it. I don't have an abundance problem. And this is where the Father comes in. See, if we look at the Bible, hurt me, right? And I certainly don't take it literally, right, anymore. But the precepts and the principles of the Bible are true. The precepts and the principles of Quran are true, even though it was used to control people, especially women, and shame them into certain positions, right? That aside, that's a problem. But underneath, the principles remain true. And the principles are that Jesus was a carpenter, and Prophet Muhammad was, he worked in camel caravans and trade, right? So God is not against us having abundance, but God certainly has a problem with us getting all our abundance from a high price point by giving people spiritual practice. Charging that much money for spiritual practice goes against the principle of the Father. It's just the principle. Okay? I know I'm getting a little heated because I'm just seeing so much of culture in the West is like, come unlock your sexual power and you'll make lots of money. And I'm like, when in your mind did you associate Tantra with sex and money? When in your mind did this occur? What has happened there? And this happened to me. When the Kundalini opened in me, I had amazing breakthroughs. She's the primal power. We need to open her up. But if we don't channel her through the rajas, this point, and into awareness, she goes into a cycle of her own power. She gets obsessed with sensuality, pleasure, materialism, and greed. Right? So the fullness of Tantra is the Kundalini power with the awareness. So the mother is the Kundalini life force, but Tantra is Shaivism, Kashmir Shaivism. It's Shiva Shakti. And the West just wants to do Shakti. They just like Shakti. Because it means that they can stay in the Rajas and the Tamas. So I did a post about, in yogic practice, the elements of the earth have been broken down into these three gunas, right? The Tamas at the bottom, the Rajas over here, and the Sattva. And when we don't incorporate the Father principles in our spiritual work and teachings, we are staying and we are circling between the Tamas and the Rajas, which is the place of materialism. We haven't broken out of our own materialism. We haven't got right thinking. So like I said, when I am product of Babylon, it's pride, my sister, totally. So what I'm seeing is that people are they're in their own egoic illusion, right? They're like, I deserve to have all the money in the world. I deserve to charge this much for Tantra practices, even though actual masters in India wouldn't comprehend of doing that. I deserve it all. So they have a Maya. They're inside an illusion, okay? And they create a spiritual discourse to validate their own illusion. Oh, my discourse is that Tantra is about generating wealth and abundance and lots of money, and I get to charge money for things because I get to do what I want, because I'm stuck in the Kundalini sense of power. And she gives us a sense of power, a power we need to reclaim, but she must be tempered by the Father. And the Father, or Shiva, coming into Sattva, consciousness, Father Sky, Mother Earth. So the Father is right thinking. And this is where we do Buddhist practice. Now, if you spend time in any kind of school of Buddhism, what you learn is right thinking. It's a very sophisticated way of analyzing mind, questioning the mind. Where am I? And coming into awareness. So sitting meditation gives you the spaciousness and awareness to observe your behavior in the prakriti, the nature, and to see what is ego. What is ego? Right? The Father, and this is the problem. So when I was like deep in my Kundalini power, I hardly meditated. I wasn't into that kind of right thinking practice. And the Mother-Father Spirit led me to Bodhizendo, I told you, in Tamil Nadu, to sit in session and receive the transmission of Father Amy Sami, the Zazen master, meditating 3 hours a day. And I'm not telling you this to make you think I'm amazing. It was the most difficult thing I ever had to do because it broke through my Kundalini Rajas, the Rajas. When the Kundalini gets stuck here, it's about my passion, my materialism. I'm a goddess, I'm a queen, I'm this. And that power is needed, but it must break through into sattva. It must break through into the principles of God, right? And we can't go and create our own spiritual discourses when literally every lineage, be that the truth in the Quran, the truth in the Bible, not the patriarchal shit, Buddhism, every lineage teaches that we are to transcend materialism. We are to transcend these things. The Father is pure. The Father is the principle. He's awareness. And the problem is, of course, it's okay if you don't operate in that way. I'm not saying like we should judge each other, right? The world is the world. We are where we are. Some of us have had Saturn returns. Some of us have had nodal returns. We're all on our own journey and in our own incarnations, right? And that's the problem with Abrahamic religion, is that the principle became so important that it was used to enforce on people and shame people. Oh, you haven't understood the principle yet. You're an idiot. You're evil. You're bad. You're dirty, right? And that's horrible. That's a trauma. But that doesn't change the fact that the principle is true and that purity is true. So purity culture is used in the church to hurt people because they haven't reached freaking, enlightenment. Like, be enlightened now as a teenager. Don't feel your desires. Don't feel the impulses in your body. Like, shame the body, okay? So that's problematic, right? To use the principle to shame a person. But that doesn't change the fact that the principle is true. This is the balance we need to find, right? So in alchemy, we see the caduceus, which is the rod, the staff of the Father, the rod of the Father. The Father is pure truth, pure, sattva, pure. And the Mother is the Kundalini serpent that climbs the staff. Now in the West, the Kundalini is coming up to this point here, right? It's only coming up halfway through the staff to the Rajas area. And it's getting stuck in false understandings of spiritual precepts. It's getting stuck in the place of, oh, I'm going to create my own spiritual precept because I kind of like charging this much money. And I kind of like only talking about sex when I talk about Tantra. What about Shiva, the other half of the body? Right? That snake has to break through the Rajas into Sattva. It has to come into pureness and understanding. Not to shame the self or to flagellate the self at all, right? But to come into a place of awareness. We have to reclaim the Father in his purity, which is he's unconditionally loving. He's the purest principle. And that's what we aim for as spiritual practitioners. We know that we're here on our path. It's messy. We don't shame our mess. We don't put obligation on ourselves. We don't pretend to be holier than thou. We are where we are. But we can't change the precepts of purity. Those exist. That's the truth. That's the truth. You don't get to change that. You can be where you are in your life. Totally own it. But you don't get to change the discourse of Tantra to suit your egoic illusion. You don't get to do that. We have to honor the principles. Right? Otherwise, every single lineage on earth, and specifically about this lesson around abundance, I don't think you'll find one master who charges the amount of money for a spiritual session as people in the West do. You would never. Because to even do that means you haven't actually had the illumination of the divine grace. You're in the rajas. For you to even do that means you actually haven't broken through into sattva. You literally are showing your own ignorance. And what you need to do is stop pretending that you have the answers and actually go seek a master. And I'm just going to show you this, right? I've been getting really emotional about this because I'm like, people can't just change like the principles of the Father. Like, come into awareness, come into right thinking. Stop with the Shakti practice. Stop with the Kundalini practice and sit in awareness for 3 hours a day until it breaks through. Because Tantra is Shakti and Shiva. And if you're all Shakti and no Shiva, awareness, spaciousness, right thinking, knowing the principles, yes, I see where I'm an illusion here. I can work through the mechanisms of my own mind. Right? So people in the West think that I have an abundance problem because I don't know how to charge $1,000 for 3 sessions with me. No, I'm bawling, to be honest. I'm funded by my home country to write a documentary series on how we lost our mother and this whole problem I've spoken about. I make money by working with film auteurs in ways that I love. I'm so abundant. The place that I'm in, I can't even tell you how I got this for hardly any money. Abundance just comes my way because I'm trying to live by the precepts. I'm trying to be pure and I want to get better at it. Right? I'm not saying I've got all the answers, but I will speak up for purity. And I know that purity culture hurt us, but it doesn't mean that purity isn't real. Right? And a friend and I were even talking about Baba Ram Das and how he ended in his life, he was living in some beautiful mansion that somebody had just given him, right? Like, that's abundance. When you hold the precepts, the principles of God the Father, the purity of the Father, then you experience the real abundance. Not abundance that comes out of your own materialistic control. Oh, I'm worried, so I'm going to charge this so much money for this spiritual thing because I actually haven't had a realization of the grace and how the grace actually provides more than you could ever provide for yourself. And it's more important to keep the teaching clean. And that price point tarnishes the teaching immediately. That's just obvious, right? And I fought Zazen, or the practice of mind and the Father, a lot. Because I love the Kundalini. And the Kundalini gives you a sense of power. And there's like a lot of sex drive in it. And me, I'm the goddess. And you are. But you're only in her totality when you come into awareness and you tame that. Right? So it's not about riding the snake. It's about taming the snake. So you see Shiva with the snake gently curled around him. He's tamed the snake. And you see the knight piercing a blade through the dragon, right? So I think that's a little violent, but there is, in my own experience, a kind of, there is a death point. There is the choice to go, I see you, dragon. I feel that desire so strong in my body. I want that money. I want to fuck. I want it. I want it. I'm Lilith. I want it. And to take the blade and go for the Father. And then you experience the death point and awareness. And then those two things integrate. And you have tamed the serpent. The serpent sits with you on your shoulders. The serpent is controlling you when you're only in your Shakti. You are in your rajas, your desires, your passions, your materialism. You are controlled by it. You haven't understood Tantra because you haven't brought it up to the purity of the Father. And what they say in Gnosticism in the scriptures, it says that Sophia is in the 9th dimension, and she gets released when she realizes that she is not lacking, right? So this concept, the story of Sophia, exists in all of us. Sophia, the one consciousness, exists in all of us, and we have misunderstandings of our own lack, right? Our own egoic attachments, our own Maya. And when you break through those attachments and you come through the Rajas point, out of your own desire and into purity, sattva is goodness, purity, awareness, then you have reclaimed Sophia out of the density of matter and into the fullness of the light. And this is what I wanted to show everyone, right? This is my mala from my Sufi Baba, right? It's got the sun on it. My Sufi Baba, I'm syncretic, right? So I've received transmission from many masters, a Zazen master and then a Sufi master in Kashmir. And I was in Kashmir in 2021, and I was with a friend, and we were contemplating like how are we going to get me to the Sufi's house, because Kashmir is the most militarized place in the world. It's a long story, but there's no freedom of expression or journalism in India. Journalists have been imprisoned, activists have been imprisoned, artists have been imprisoned for speaking about what's happening in Kashmir. And the mass media in India has people believing that the occupation is necessary when it actually isn't. I won't go all the way down that road, but my Kashmiri friends are suffering. And we were like, how are we going to get you to that area of Srinagar, because, it's highly militarized and everything. Anyway, by divine providence, my Kashmiri friend, we get there on the motorbike, we're cruising, we eventually get to the mosque, and there alongside the mosque is where the Sufi Baba sits. And I walked into his room, and I love that sort of Islamic way of life where everyone's like on the floor, like long carpets, and at the end of the room there's a table on the floor, and Sufi Baba's behind the table, and there's all these people seated on the carpet waiting to speak to Baba. I'm getting emotional because of how much my encounter with him meant. So there he is, receiving people, praying, giving them mantra, listening to their stories, this mother talking into, I don't even know what she's saying, but she's going on, and Baba's listening. And I look around the room, and there's pictures of Sufis on the wall, a Sufi with an eagle over his head and a pen, and the eagles were haunting me that day. I was like, I'm in the right place, and I get to the front eventually, and my friend is translating for me, translating my request of Baba, just telling him who I am. And he's taking me in and he's listening, and then he prayed over me, and I felt this deep transmission come in, deep receiving. I felt the spirit. And then he turned inward and he received the mantra for me, and he told me my mantra. And then he turns around and he grabbed a mala, his own mala he gave me, which was, I was just like, Baba, like kissing his hand. Thank you, Baba, thank you, And after that, I went to the mountains, did my mantra for 40 days, and had a complete dissolution of self, like an alchemical wedding of the mother and father principles. The mantra transformed me. And at points in my practice, I could feel Sufi Baba there. I could converse with him, and I still do. And other masters. And that man didn't ask for a dime. What people do is his desk is there, and you receive, he works with you, and then you just throw money under the table. He has no idea what you've put, and he doesn't care. And obviously I just take a chunk of cash, and I'm like, oh my God, Baba, I love you, you know what I mean? But the point is that it's important, and when I spend time with Tibetan Buddhists and my friend Geshe Tashi and learning about the path of the Bodhisattva, not once was money mentioned. And it's important that we honor that principle, because it's just the truth. And if we're not at the level of mastery, I'm certainly not there, but I'm humbled by the masters that have transmitted something to me. And I emulate that. I'm not going to go get stuck in my own ego and be like, I'm going to make up. I grew up in the West and I've got the poison of materialism in my brain. So I'm just going to go change spiritual precepts to suit my wealth. Tantra means wealth. Tantra means materialism now because I'm inside my own Maya. So I'm just going to say that. I'm just going to change the principles of the Father. So, waves to everyone. I just feel so much love for my father today. And while, yes, reclaim the mother, but only in balance with the father. And never take these precepts and the purity of the father, the pure staff, the rod of the father, so pure, the precepts, hey? So pure. We don't have to shame ourselves with that or get into that Abrahamic pattern. We don't have to do that. But we do need to admire them and honor them and say, one day, I hope to come up into deeper and deeper light and expansion. I want the snake to come all the way up the staff, not only halfway where she gets stuck in my own illusions. The Father is absolutely necessary. Okay, so how long have I been going? I don't even know. Waves to everyone. Yeah. Thank you. If you have any questions, shoot them now. Otherwise, I'll just slowly meander out of here. Yeah. And I just want to end with, like, it's no judgment. Like, we're all where we're at. But there is principle and purity and truth. And that's it. Like, let's not pretend. Let's not go down the road of psychosis where we change like 3,000-year-old sutras to suit our own illusions. Oh yes, please share more about leaving Abrahamic religion. Well, I don't know if you just joined, but I spoke a little bit about it earlier in this video. What was your journey away from Christianity? I will save this live. Thank you. Well, I do speak at the beginning of this. I speak a bit about my why I left and how the father hurt me, because he was like stuck in that patriarchal Abrahamic enforcing father, and how the mother brought me back into right relationship with the father. Which is why this video was about the fullness of the spiritual path, not just Shakti, Kundalini, my mother, my wild, but also awareness, the father, the Shiva, the spaciousness and right thinking, the precepts. I'd love to tell you more about my ancestry. Further on in the year, maybe I will tell you, yes. I'm South African. I'm born and raised in South Africa, but I come from Lebanese ancestry. So my father is Lebanese and my mother's bloodline is like a mix of British. But the Lebanese runs deep in me. Yeah. You know, if you grew up, anyone who grew up with a Middle Eastern parent, my father, Middle Eastern, you know, even though we grew up in, South Africa is quite westernized, so we grew up in South Africa. Anybody who grew up like in another country, like a Western country, but their parents are Middle Eastern, you know the flavor of that parentage. And, you know, my father was so enforcing with religion. He's a preacher. And I've come to this, it really, like, it angered me for many years when I was going through my religious trauma recovery. But the one thing I appreciate is, like, I wouldn't be who I am without my father's passion for the truth. Like, he got too Abrahamic and like enforcing, but he is also like, these are the precepts. My father is just like, these are the principles. And sure, he didn't give me room to be imperfect and be in my body and be my wild and my mother, and that was hurtful. But my father also gave me principle. I think any Middle Eastern kid knows that. They understand that weird difficulty of growing up with like a kind of enforcing Middle Eastern parent, but at the same time, I think I would have chosen that over a parent who didn't get principle at all. You know, just lost in the materialism of the West, you know, like a parent who's just like, hasn't got a lineage, you know. So I'm like, I was hurt by my father, but I'm also deeply grateful to my father. It's a very weird combination. Yeah, I'm friends with a woman who was stuck in Christian and Abrahamic cults and recognized so much of these traumas in her not being allowed mothering. Yeah, totally. So this whole video, you'll see from the beginning, it was about me coming back into spirituality through the mother. And now I'm trying to, you know, communicate how we bridge that with the right relationship with the father, because we still have a father. He's not the psycho Yahweh father, the Abrahamic nutter. He's not that guy, but we still have a father, and he's totally loving, completely non-judgmental. Like, wherever we're at, and you know, wherever we're at in life, he's not judging us like the Abrahamic insane father. He's just like, I am, and I love, and I am the rod of truth. I am the principle, you know, and I'm always here for my children, and I'm not here to judge them. But also, I'm going to be the father and say, I don't judge you, but these are the principles. You might be in a bit of Maya right now with all this illusion you're creating over here. You're in the Rajas, probably there. It's okay. But as the father, I'm going to tell you that these are the principles. So don't distort the teaching. Do what you want to do. No judgment. But do not distort the teachings. And honor the fullness of any lineage you profess to represent. If you don't have the father in your tantric practice, call yourself a sex coach. Simple. Okay. Waves to everyone, sending love. Enjoy the lunar eclipse coming up. It's so funny that, yeah, coming to the lunar is like this, I don't know, I'm feeling this deep reclamation of my father and the need to speak up for my father. Like, I love him. I love the father. And the mother and father together, it's like such a beautiful combination. So I think from now on, I even changed, if you saw in my profile, I used to be Holy Mother God, but I changed it to Mother and Father God. Because I was pushing the mother so hard, because we really need that, but now I'm like, oh, we might have tipped over on that side. We're going to need to bring some father in here. So I'm definitely going to be speaking a lot more to that alchemical union. Shiva Shakti, Hieros Gamos. So I'm feeling that in my own path. Okay, now I'm off. Sending love to everyone. Yeah, and I just hope you can feel safe if you've gone through what I've gone through and you grew up in that way with Abrahamic patriarchy. I just pray that the father and the mother turns you to the father in a way that feels safe, like you get to put your arms around a really good dad. Strong, principled, but totally gets you and where you're at, like no judgments. And that's why I wore blue today. I was like, I'm wearing blue for the father. Blue is the father. Okay. Now I'm really going. Okay, bye everyone. Thank you.